Okay.
Good morning,
Good
Jackie.
morning,
Good morning,
everyone. Welcome to the Sarah Stevenson Virtual Tuesday Morning Forum. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm the facilitator, along with facilitators Laura McClady, Carlenia Ivory, Jackie Walton Edwards, Nathalie McElrath, who is our timekeeper, Winston Robinson, Steve Johnston, and Saritha Sherrill. Our forum runs from 8:30 to 9:30. However, we do stay online until 9:45 for additional conversation if you can stay. There's no pressure to stay. All announcements can be sent to Steve at sjohnston@tuesdaymorningforum.org, and he'll put that in the chat. Okay. We always begin with prayer. So, Miss Saritha, are you with us?
She is not at the moment.
Okay. Jackie, can I put you in?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Father, thank you so much for your so many blessings. And we ask that as today, as we go through the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum, that you just give us calm and peace and let us soak up the knowledge that's coming from those who are running in the judicial races. We thank you again for your so many blessings. Guide us throughout this day. In the name of the soon coming King. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have any first timers here? Anyone here for the first time? We do want to acknowledge you. If you're here for the first time, you can just raise your hand. You can raise your real hand, or you can raise your, okay, I see Krishan. Is that Krishan and Elissa? So I'm going to start with Krishan.
Good morning. It's the
Good
first time.
morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. And come back again. Okay, Elissa Levine.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Elissa Levine, and I am a colleague of all of the individuals who you'll be hearing from today. And I'm running for Mecklenburg County District Court Judge Seat 14, and I'll be on everyone's ballot in November. And I apologize that I'm not on video. I'm about to get in the car, so for safety, I'm not going to put it on, but I really am thrilled to be here. And thank you for the opportunity to hear from these candidates.
Okay, and join us again. Okay?
Oh, I will.
Very interesting conversations. Thank you.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone else who's here for the first time? Okay. Well, Steve put he put something in the chat that we like to read every day, and that is, participation in forums is a privilege sustained by agreement to stay on topic, to treat all participants with respect, and to honor decisions of facilitators. Violators may face immediate suspension of the privilege. So we like to get that out of the way. Our guests today are district court candidates for seats 1, 18, and 19. Jennifer is, where's Jennifer? Jennifer is not, she doesn't have an opponent, so she's not on, okay? She doesn't have an opponent. Okay. So for District 1, Seat 1, we have Mr. Chris Bazzle and Shante Burke-Hayer. And for Seat 18, we have Keith Smith and Cecilia Oseguera. And for Seat 19, we have Belal Elrahal and Samantha Mobley. So we're going to start by giving each person, we're going to start with Chris and then Shantay, Chris and Shantay. You have, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to give your introduction. I know that's long, but I'm going to give each one of you 2 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay, so Chris.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. My name is Chris Bazzle. It's good to see everybody again this Tuesday morning. I am running for District Court Seat 1. That is the seat that Kimberly Best was in before she was moved to the Superior Court, the court above that. It has been vacant since December. It is up in the primary that will end on the 17th with an expected governor's appointment to fill that vacancy starting in June. I've been a magistrate here in Mecklenburg County for the past 6 years, serving all of the communities, seeing people from all over our county. all hours of the day. The criminal magistrate's court is open 24/7. I typically serve from 2 to 11, but can be there until 1 o'clock in the morning at times. I've been an attorney for 13 years in North Carolina, and the magistrate's work that I've done has been the most meaningful thing I've done with my law degree. I am there with survivors and victims, and also those accused of crimes, as well as people seeking help for those with mental health issues that are in crisis or in domestic violence situations or have juvenile issues where the court system needs to come and do something because a child is in imminent danger or has committed or allegedly committed a crime that is of very serious nature. When I'm in court, I make sure that everyone that appears before me is seen and heard, regardless of what part of our community they come from, whether they look like me or they do not, if their background or their life story is completely different from what I have lived, who they love, what their gender is, what they believe, or even what language they speak. And I want to take those experiences to the district court where we decide the outcome of these cases to make sure that the justice I am promising at that initial stage is followed through on. Anyone that appears in my courtroom is given dignity, is given respect so they can trust that they are being heard. Beyond the verdict, driven by the facts and listened to from both sides before any decision is made. I want to make sure the outcomes that our courts are handing down in family court, in juvenile court, in criminal misdemeanor court are outcomes that help build better futures, not longer criminal histories or more returns to the courtroom. I want to make sure those outcomes are available for everyone, regardless of who your attorney is or if you're representing yourself, what kind of money you have, or how many experiences you've had with the court. I think somebody's first time in court can be their last time, and we don't need to have them involved with our court systems for their entire life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shantay?
Thank you. While experience is important, character is immeasurable. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shante Burke-Hayer, and I am running for District Court Judge Seat 1. I am from a very small town in Northeast North Carolina called Gates, North Carolina. And that's a place that's often overlooked, not heard of, and underserved. But I've been in Charlotte for 15 years now, so I'm lucky to call Charlotte my home. But the beauty that I see in this is that I have lived 2 different lifestyles, and I can bring that experience to the bench because I understand the different walks of life that stand before a district court judge. I am an attorney here in Charlotte, and I provide services to all, but especially the underserved and underrepresented communities, because I personally can understand and identify with the struggles of the Black and Brown communities. I've practiced in every single area that a district court judge can preside over. So I know district court. I represented criminal defendants. I've been a guardian ad litem for children who were abused, neglected, and dependent. I represent those parents of those children who were abused, neglected, and dependent. I practice primarily in family law now, so child custody and child support cases and divorce cases, so working with the families. I also work in estate planning and probate. So all of these things make for a good judge, but I do believe that my goal is to strive to be a great judge. And I've demonstrated that through my experience, but I also demonstrated through my passion. And that is why I'm running, because I truly have a heart to serve the people. You can't serve people if you don't care about them, if you don't respect them. And so that is why I am doing what I do today and will continue to do tomorrow. Thank you all so much for inviting me, and I look forward to the questions on this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, for seat 18, we had Keith Smith and Cecilia Oseguera. So we're going to start with Keith and then Cecilia.
Good morning, students and breakfast. My name is Keith Smith. I am seeking seat 18. That seat was previously held by Judge Reginald Knight, who was appointed to Superior Court by the governor. I've actually practiced law for the last 21 years, primarily Superior and District Court. I have district court experience. Currently have worked for 17 and a half years as an attorney for Mecklenburg County, representing Mecklenburg County DSS and child service cases. So I've seen some horrendous issues and matters before me. For that, I actually served as a prosecutor for 3 years, Rowan County, and I always joke with people, it's really difficult. So it was very fortunate for me to be able to come back to Mecklenburg County and serve in a role with Mecklenburg protecting together again. In addition, I worked as a probation parole officer for 3 years. I have worked previously as a child protective service investigator, 10 years, 5 years of which was after hours doing emergency responses and conflict. One of the reasons I shared some of my past experiences because I know how to meet people where they are. And I always say the trenches, because I have met folk in worst case situations. In addition, my first job out of college was working in prison. Over the week, I actually ran into two individuals who worked in prison. I've never had any issue with engaging with someone because I treat people with dignity and respect matter and station in life. My parents taught me growing up in rural. I'm breaking up. Something that my parents taught me in rural North Carolina, trying to grow North Carolina, is that you treat people with dignity, and respect. I am committed to fairness, accountability, compassion, and equity. You deserve a view from someone who is engaged, involved, and aware of the challenges and experience that they can from you. Please consider me when you're looking to vote for a team. In addition, I have been teaching at Catawba College since 2001. Business law. I am a mentor, I've been a community mentor with youth. I was very engaged in setting up a data club. In addition, I am a mentor with 100 Black Men of Charlotte, where I was actually recognized as a mentor here by the Marriage Mentoring Alliance in 2014. So thank you for the time. I'll put some of the information in the chat, and that it appears that I was out, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Cecilia Oseguera, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Cecilia Oseguera, and I'm running for seat 18, District Court Judge seat 18. I've served the public my entire career. I've been a practicing lawyer for over 20 years. I grew up in Southern California. I was practicing in California in state court and federal court before I moved here. It's been 17 years. I was a attorney at Pisgah Legal Services in Buncombe County, where I represented civil clients anywhere in child custody, domestic violence, protective orders, landlord-tenant litigation, immigration matters as well. So I was around Buncombe County and all the surrounding Western Carolina state courts. After that, I started working as an assistant federal public defender here in Charlotte. I worked there for 16 years. I have been in court with clients for 20 years, my entire legal career. I understand how to apply the law to the facts in an unbiased manner. Most importantly, I understand people. A lot of my job was sentencing mitigation, where I humanize people as opposed to a person being a statistic, a defendant, a litigant, a plaintiff in a party. I actually see every person as a human, and that's how I would present my cases to the judges, that this isn't just a number, this isn't just a case, but there's an actual person behind in court, not just a litigant or a defendant or a plaintiff. I've represented juveniles, I've represented adults in criminal and civil matters. I've tried cases for 20 years, both in federal and state court. I do also believe that diversity is very necessary because it enhances trust in the judicial system. There does need to be an increase in diversity in the judiciary, both in federal and state courts. I have also served as a volunteer since I've moved to North Carolina, very active in the Mecklenburg County Bar with their Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I've also mentored, participated in Lunch with a Lawyer, where I go to schools, 8th grade schools, and I mentor 8th grade students and help them and have them get a better understanding of what it means to be an attorney or just go to school in general. It's usually predominantly Latino and African American students that I mentor. I'm sorry? Okay, thank you. And so I hope I will put my information on the chat. So if anyone has questions for me, I will include my website as well as my email, phone number for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, for seat 19, we have Belal Elrahal and Samantha Mobley. We're going to start with Belal.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. Thanks for attending. To all of our participants. My name is Belal Elrahal, and I'm running for District Court Judge, seat 19, the seat that will be vacated by Judge Tracy Hewitt. I was born and raised in Charlotte. I went to Harding University High School and stayed local in North Carolina for undergrad and law school. I was born here after my parents immigrated from Lebanon to escape civil war. And that experience growing up here as an outsider, really, no matter what school I went to, really was a big part of who I am. Whether I was at Randolph Middle, Harding High School, Davidson College, I never walked into a room, unfortunately, and felt like I belonged. And that taught me a lot about the importance of human connection and the importance of connecting with people just on the basis of the fact that we have a shared human experience. And that we should care for each other regardless of these other dividing lines that people try to put between us, right? It's always somebody else's goal to put dividing lines between us. And it's always been a goal of mine to build bridges across those lines and to break those barriers. So for my entire legal career, I have fought for fairness, fought for outsiders, fought for the underserved and underrepresented. When I was in private practice, I volunteered as part of President Obama's Clemency Project 2014, where we filed clemency petitions for people charged and sentenced for nonviolent drug offenses. And right now I serve you at the Public Defender's Office, where I represent people in district court and in superior court daily, charged with offenses in underrepresented and underserved communities who need good legal representation. Because as much as we put trust in the judiciary, trust in the administrative and judicial officials, lawyers are necessary because you have to have somebody there in the courtroom to fight for people at the end of the day. And I believe that we deserve a district court bench that has the experience of being on the ground, being with the people, pushing for them, connecting them with resources in the community, connecting them with resources in the judicial system itself, in the government system itself, and having awareness and familiarity with the people involved. I also serve you as an attorney in the Army Reserves, in the JAG Corps, and through that process, I'm able to serve local families with landlord-tenant issues, usually interstate, sometimes international child custody issues, and with a chemical brigade in Greenville, South Carolina. I've been doing that since about 2016. So I'm running to bring that experience, to bring that dedication to service to the district court bench. I'm, again, appreciative of the time that you're going to give us this morning. I hope to ask you for your support, and I'm sure at the very end of this, I'll put my contact information and website and all that in the chat. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Samantha Mobley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Mobley. I'm an attorney who serves as a magistrate here in Mecklenburg County down at the courthouse. I'm running for District Court Judge, seat 19. As a magistrate, I've had the opportunity to preside on the bench in both criminal and civil court amongst a wide range of cases, including civil disputes, landlord-tenant court, involuntary commitments related to mental health, emergency protective orders, including temporary custody. In criminal court, I conduct initial appearances and render judgments in infraction and misdemeanor cases. Since 2016, I've served at the Board of Elections under Chief Judge Patrick Burris, and I volunteer in our community with Heal Charlotte and the Veterans Bridge Home. When I was growing up, I lived in a home that did foster care for children. So children would come to live in our home when they were victims of abandonment or neglect, physical abuse or sexual abuse, or their parents were struggling with drug addiction. Overall, I've had 17 different foster brothers and sisters growing up, each of those being placed in our home by the court. So I've had a very close, upfront view of the court's effect on families for many years. I've seen the pain that children experience when they are separated from their parents because they really want to be with their natural families. I've seen the pain that the parents experience being separated from their children because many of them really do want to be with their children, but just are not in a position to be able to do so at the time. This is what inspired me to get involved in the legal process. And as a district court judge, I will work hard to come up with healthy solutions for the challenging problems that our families face. I think about time. I'm at time, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank all of you for being here today. And we're going to open this up for questions. I actually don't have any questions in the chat. I am really surprised. I need you all to come on with some questions here. But I will ask a question. I guess this is, yeah. I need to know, or I need you to explain, what does a district court judge do? Okay, so I need, I'll take any of you to answer that question. The job of a district court judge. Keith, you answer it.
Thank you. District court judge has a number of responsibilities that we don't even think about. It's making determinations about bond, and which actually affects someone's freedom. Going back to my innate experience with DSS court, making decisions and determinations about when will have their children taken into custody and possibly have their parental rights terminated. It could be something as simple or as mundane as a misdemeanor marijuana charge, a misdemeanor larceny charge. All those things have an impact on individuals' police records, child support court. That has an impact on how children are supported. There is a whole array of responsibilities that district court judges have, and I'm going to save this for some of my colleagues to answer some of the additional responsibilities.
Okay, I'm going to go to Shantay.
I'll jump in and add on to what Mr. Smith has already stated, but district court judges, one, they listen. They are supposed to listen to your case. They listen to your voice. And so they listen to those who come into court, whether it be for domestic violence purposes or family law purposes, such as, and I get that question a lot, what is family law? So if it's a child custody case or a child support case, divorce, equitable distribution, like Mr. Smith said, juvenile cases, so abuse, neglect, dependent cases, criminal matters. So they are supposed to preside over those matters, and some civil matters as well, landlord, tenant, preside over those matters, listen to what the person in front of them is saying, and analyze the facts and apply the law to the facts. But I also believe the role of the judge is to remain impartial and to remain respectful and to be fair when they are rendering their decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Belal.
One thing that I think helps people to think about when it comes to district court is also where it sits with the other courts, right? So district court is the first level of trial court, right? It's the very first level where you have a judge presiding. It's the very first level where you have trials, between lawyers, resolving issues, and with judgments. So a lot of times the legal system is tiered, right? So you start in magistrate court, you start with, like we've heard, right? Initial appearances, initial setting of bond, initial determinations. And then it moves into the first level of trial court, what people consider to be, the kind of court you see on TV. And then after that is superior court. So superior court, some cases start in superior court, felonies for criminal cases, civil cases that are above $25,000, and then sometimes cases that get appealed out of district court. But as you've heard, criminal misdemeanors that get tried, it happens in district court. Civil cases between $10,000 and $25,000 in district court, family law, child support, child custody, and juvenile justice court is also in district court. And I think something that's important to recognize as well is that juvenile court and abuse, neglect, and dependency court and DSS courts, they're not only in district court, but they're in district court as a court of record, which means that they get tried in district court. And then if there's an appeal, it goes straight to the Court of Appeals, right? A lot of times lawyers have what's the hierarchy, right? Oh, judge, I have a case in superior court, so I have to continue this district court case, right? And so the judge in district court will let a person go to superior court because that court is more important, right? Except the highest priority cases of all, right, are those abuse, neglect, and dependency cases in district court. So even though it's a district court case, you can bump a superior court case to come back down to district, because that's how important some of those cases are that get resolved in district court.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
They've done a great job in describing a lot of the aspects.
No.
District court also deals with things that flow from the magistrate's court. The magistrate's court is part of district court. Small claims is for civil matters below $10,000 in the original place for simple landlord-tenant matters where people are evicted. Appeals from that go to district court where they can be heard. We also do involuntary commitment, which is orders to law enforcement to take someone to a hospital when they're in the midst of a mental health crisis. If they are staying in that hospital longer than 7 days, they are heard by a district court trial judge to make sure their due process rights are not being deprived and that they're in the hospital for the right reason. And district court criminal court hears misdemeanors, which again would be things as small as class 3 misdemeanors like trespass, all the way up to some violent misdemeanors that are in class A1 misdemeanors. And those are typically bench trials, if not always bench trials, where the judge is both the trier of fact and the trier of law, applying those facts and then sentencing and deciding if someone is found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So it is the foundation trial court.
Okay, thank you. Cecilia?
I think what the public probably should know, and all the voters, is that district court judges have a high volume of cases. So the voters should probably elect someone who has experience with a heavy caseload, someone who is an efficient manager, time management, who has time management skills, because those district court judges are hearing a lot of cases. And I think my colleagues already indicated family law, misdemeanor, criminal cases. But also, I think what the voters need to understand as well, or should, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but the district court judges do have a lot of discretion. As Mr. Bazzle indicated, a lot of the cases are bench trials. So the judges are actually deciding people's fate, sometimes people's liberty, and other civil matters. So a judge, if someone's deciding who they're going to vote for, has to have a commitment to the judicial profession. That means that judge has to understand their responsibility, their judicial authority, and their judicial limitations.
Thank you. And Samantha?
My colleagues have done a great job of talking about what district court judges do from 9 to 5. But I want everyone to know that there's so much more after 5 o'clock that our district court judges do. And I'll just take this moment to say thank you to them. After the court closes, they are still going. The magistrates take care of a lot of the court's work after the district court closes. However, we are in contact with district court judges all through the night. Excuse me. So, for example, when someone comes in at 2 a.m. seeking a domestic violence protective order, the magistrate will do the majority of the work up front and then contact a district court judge in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. And some of our district court judges have been just fantastic. They are absolutely responsive, and they're able to make certain calls in the middle of the night. And this goes on every single day of the week. Also, their weekends are not their own. Drug court treatment. I've been to some programs on the weekends with district court judges for that, whether it's a recognition ceremony or a picnic for people who have completed their drug treatment that we want to honor and recognize and encourage. Many of our district court judges do speaking events in the evenings, talking to young people, trying to help our community outside of the courtroom. So it's absolutely imperative that we have district court judges who are available to work outside of the courtroom and are willing to serve beyond the courtroom. As I mentioned, I currently serve with Heal Charlotte, and in that organization, we are trying to, one, heal the relationship between the police and our community, and also keep our young people off of the streets. Right now, we've got a Stop the Violence campaign going on and basketball tournaments for our young people on the weekends where I volunteer. So it's super important that we have people who are willing to go beyond the bench. Thank you.
And thank you. The reason I asked that question is because so often people don't really understand what it means to be a district court judge. We have citizens all the time coming before district court judges, and they really don't understand, and the general public. And then the judge is always at the end of the ballot, and that's another thing. So we need to know who it is that we're going in front of when we, I'm not going to say we, I'm going to say when they get in trouble. Okay. I need one of you to answer this question. Only one person can do this, but we have 3 seats: seat 1, seat 18, and seat 19. What does that mean? Seat 1, seat 18, seat 9. What does that mean, Chris?
Yes, ma'am. So currently in Mecklenburg County, district court is for our judicial district, which is all of Mecklenburg County. Where I grew up in Hendersonville, we shared our district with 2 other counties, so we shared resources with those counties. The seats are the number that we have. We have 21 district court judges, and each one of those seats, they split it half and half as to who runs when, either the off years or the presidential years, so that there are elections every 2 years. But those seats are assigned to different parts of the court by the chief district court judge as to the cases they'll hear, but they hear cases and see people from all over the county. It's not like Superior Court where it's a geographical region that elects people. There was an attempt and a change to the law that reverted back recently where it was certain parts of the county, but it's back to countywide at this point.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions in the chat now. I'm going to, what competencies have you developed during your life that are outside your legal profession? Okay, let's see, Samantha.
Thank you for the question. So the first one I would say is compassion. I worked for 3 years at the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And in that organization, most of the people who are there are just finding out for the first time that themselves or their loved one has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that is a life-changing experience. Now people are going to be monitoring their insulin and getting shots. Most of the people that we dealt with were younger. So you've got the sometimes awkwardness of becoming a teenager and then having this other thing that makes you different from everybody else. Kids not wanting to participate in what they should be doing for their health. So it's just an extremely emotional and stressful time for families with this new diagnosis that they're dealing with. So there I learned about a lot about compassion for others and how to deal with others when they're going through a really tough time. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that you have 1 minute to answer this question.
Okay.
Okay, Nathalie, 1 minute. Okay, Belal?
I would add on top of that, at least personally for me, a competency that I've been fortunate now, it was tough then, is just cultural competencies. A lot of my life growing up, I was the representative for Middle Eastern background, for Muslim children, for people with immigrant parents. And, growing up, it's tough to be the representative for an entire group of people. And so, that kind of cultural competency also led me to connect with other people and to try and have that understanding to where when I met somebody who was new, my first question isn't, but where are you really from, right? Or where is that name really from? If they give me an answer or stuff like that, right? Because you learn how that feels as the only in the room. And so having cultural competency, I think, is really important. Our county, as we heard, is becoming more and more diverse, having so many more communities from all around the world coming in to Mecklenburg County. And so cultural competency is something as well that I've been able to develop.
Okay, Cecilia, thank you.
Right. Yes, I think I touched on this earlier, but I do think that, going out of being a lawyer is very important for development, not just practicing law, but I do believe in community service and giving back to the community because so many people, as a young child, my mom never graduated from high school. She had a 9th grade education, and my dad immigrated to this country and eventually received a high school diploma equivalency. So although they were amazing people with wisdom, I didn't have any role models that were in college or school. So what I've done, I'm going to be brief because I have my minute. I've participated in the Lunch with the Lawyer program with mentoring 8th grade students, increasing diversity in the legal profession through the Mecklenburg County Bar, high school students that are interested in the legal profession. I've also spoken with youth at Stonewall Jackson Youth Development Center in Concord about criminal law issues with how to avoid or get out of the system that they are in. So I'm a volunteer for youth, and I think that's been very important and has helped me also with my legal career. And it's very rewarding as well, not just for the students, but for me as well.
Thank you. Keith?
Thank you. As I indicated earlier, I've been mentoring youth since 1992, and just being linked with youth, especially young folk of color, you get an opportunity to meet them where they are and look at some of the challenges, struggles that they deal with. Being a minority male from rural Sunny Grove, North Carolina, and I always encourage people, Sunny Grove is a great place to grow up, but if you read about some of the history of Sunny Grove, you'll say, well, it's an interesting place. One thing that I learned growing up in that environment is you need to be able to meet people where they are, no matter what background, whether their biases, whatever they're going to be. You need to be able to treat people fairly. My parents taught me, and as Ms. Asaguera was sharing, my parents had limited educational background. My parents were great educated Americans. My dad worked in a cotton mill. I worked in a cotton mill. My first job out of in high school was working in a cotton mill at the age. I've never been a or apart from any group of folk. I know how to deal with folk at all levels.
Thank you. Shantay?
Thank you. So the question was, what competencies have you developed during your life? And for me, I would say the willingness and the ability to easily connect with pretty much any community and any person, meeting them where they are. I believe Mr. Smith just stated that. Coming from a very small town called Gates, North Carolina, it's rural there. There's really nothing there. We travel outside of Gates County. We travel to Virginia to do everything. But it is underserved. We don't have a lot of resources. So I know how to pretty much thrive in a situation like that. But also just knowing that I too face the same issues that the general public face. I have the same concerns about housing and being able to afford housing. I have the same concerns about safety in the community. I have concerns about being a great mother, just making sure that I'm a great mother. I have children. So those being able to understand the issues that the community face, because I understand and I face those same issues. I've been able to network and put myself in different rooms and at different tables to understand everyone, and so everyone can also understand me. So that is a very key component to just thriving in life and also becoming a great judge as well. I'm sure I'm over my minute, but yeah.
Thank you. And Chris?
Yes, ma'am. A competency that I have developed throughout my life, and especially used in the magistrate's role, has been listening. And I know that sounds simple, but being able to listen to whoever is in front of you, whether they agree with you or not, whether they share the same life experience you do or do not. And very often I have had that experience where they do not, but also listening to people at a table, working together to be able to solve a common problem. So listening to the people who appear in the court, expecting us to help resolve their disputes, but also listening at things like the Domestic Violence Advisory Committee or the Involuntary Committee, where we have all these stakeholders who are bringing their expertise, whether it is from education or from life experiences, trying to solve problems and working together to resolve those. So as part of judicial temperament, you listen to the people in front of you, not just waiting to talk, not just hearing them when they're talking, but listening to what they're saying, listening to them in some of their worst moments and being able to go through that with them. Before I was a magistrate, I worked mostly in personal injury and disability law. So my entire career has been listening to people that have gone through some of the worst parts of their lives and trying to help them, and also finding solutions both inside and outside of the courtroom on how we can best do that from the systems we're in, and also listening when we're wrong and admitting we're wrong and recognizing when we need to address those problems when we have issues where our court system isn't meeting people with the needs they have.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is for all candidates. Each of you are successful in your respective careers. What factors played into your decision to run for the particular judicial seat you are seeking? Okay, this time with Chris, we're going to start with you. Sorry.
I chose to run for district court because I felt a need to serve my community more. What I do as a magistrate is the most important thing I've done, and I enjoy doing it, but I can do more with the tools that the district court provides us. Being able to see those cases all the way through the end and make those decisions, like I mentioned earlier. I chose seat 1 because in December, I'd already started running in October and hadn't chosen a seat yet, but in December, Judge Best was appointed to the Superior Court, and it was a vacant seat, and it allowed for me to fill a role that was currently vacant and serve in such a way that didn't necessarily put me in conflict with other qualified people or other people that I think need to serve our community as well. So I chose seat 1 at that time because it was vacant, and I chose to run for a district court judge to be able to do more for our community.
Thank you. Cecilia?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I chose to run because I've been in Mecklenburg County for 17 years now, and the Latino population is increasing. It's at 15% now. And I did notice that there weren't any Latino Hispanic judges on the bench. Latinos and men of color are overrepresented in the criminal courts, and so that I've always had an issue with as well. So what I was hoping is that as a judge, to definitely, I'm committed to impartiality, to definitely look at all the cases, be impartial, and strive to make the judicial system, the courts, more impartial and fair. So when people enter the courtroom, they automatically don't feel like it's stacked up against them, that it will be fair, their hearing will be fair, and that they will, regardless of the result, that they'll have a fair hearing.
Okay. Samantha?
Thank you for the question. There are several reasons why I am running. So as I mentioned, I've served you for a magistrate, and I've served you in that role for a period of over 8 years now. In this time, I agree with what's been stated a lot in the comments and on the call. I have seen a disproportionate number of African Americans come before me in magistrate court. And so I want to serve and in a way that I look at each case and really make sure that there's probable cause or that all of the elements are met before allowing another case to go through for someone who may not even be responsible of what they're being accused of. So I really want to take a look up front at what's going on and doing my part and making sure we're not sending cases further down the line that don't need to go down the line. As far as my particular process, I was initially approached by a district court judge, and they asked, what do you think about running for office? And I said, oh, you know what? I'll think about that. I'll think about that one day. I had seen it a little bit more in the future. Not long after, I was approached by a superior court judge who said the same thing and asked me to consider.
Time.
Okay.
Okay, good time. Thank you so much. Shantay?
I love this question. So what factor played into my decision? Number one, prayer, because I pray about everything that I do before I do it. And so when God has directed me to do something, I'm going to do it. So because I have to be obedient. And so with that being stated, before I was an attorney, I heard their voices, I heard their cries. And as an attorney, I continue to do that. I hear the voices of my clients when I'm standing with them in court. I stand with them in court before judges. I see how they're treated when they're before judges. Some of them are treated disproportionately. Some of them are disrespected. Some of them are cut off. Some of them have anxiety and fear about what is going to happen with my children, with my life. And I care about that. So that is what caused me to run, because I carry their burdens sometimes when I go to court with them. I'm running because I'm passionate about making sure that they have someone on this bench that's going to hear them, that's going to respect them, that when they walk in, they can say, you know what, I can breathe a little bit. even if I don't like what she comes out with, at least I know I was heard and I was treated with respect and I was treated fairly. That's my minute.
Okay, thank you. Keith?
Thank you for the question. One of the reasons I decided to run for the particular seat is I spoke with both of the prior occupants of the seat, Honorable Judge Reggie Knight, Judge Reagan Miller, and I respect their positioning in terms of their temperament. They were deliberate about handling cases, and just my approach is very similar. Very deliberate, very calm, very even-keeled. I take the approach that everyone needs to be treated fairly, equally, with dignity and respect, and that is my. Ultimately, I decided to run because I want to continue serving the people, and that's what I've been doing essentially the entirety of my adult life, and even prior to that, that's how I was raised. My parents always believed in serving others.
Okay, thank you. And Belal?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have a similar path as Keith did, for at least for this particular race. I met with Judge Tracy Hewitt when I heard that she was not planning to run for her seat. She and I were co-workers at the Public Defender's Office before she was appointed by the governor and ran unopposed. And so talking to her about it, talking to her about her experience, and whether or not I would run for her seat was a big factor. And so that's why we announced back in September of last year for that. But I think just as important was, decisions in the past not to run. Back in 2018, we were all carved into districts. And I was in a district with 3 competent, excellent, fair judges that I respected. And so I knew I would not run, right? I knew I would not run, and I liked those judges. In 2020, it went back to countywide, and I looked and I researched and I saw who was running, and there were people running unopposed, right? But I met them, I got to know them, I learned who they were and their backgrounds, and I chose not to run, And so I think it's important to have people here that are dedicated and that are taking accountability for their own decision to run.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we do have another question, and this is for everybody also. Have you had ideas of how district courts could be refashioned to be more immune to disruption during the next pandemic? Okay, Samantha.
Yes, electronic devices and, doing court over WebEx, doing court in manners like that to keep court moving. We did get significantly behind. And so people have been waiting on justice for years, and that just can't happen again. People need to have answers in a timely manner. People are depending on the court for answers for where they're going to live. People are depending on answers from court about getting charges off of their records or even getting their cases heard. Some jobs depend on the type of charges that people have on their records or what they're even being accused of. So it's imperative that we keep court moving. Again, I think that WebEx would be the best thing. One thing that we've talked about in our meetings is the possibility, and I don't know if this is going to come to fruition, but here's an idea that I think is a great one, is maybe having a kiosk at the library for those who do not have internet connection, where they could go to the library and there be a designated area for them to communicate with the court, to be able to have their cases heard in the event of them not being able to get down to the courthouse or only a limited number of people being allowed in the courthouse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Belal?
Yeah, absolutely. The increase in access virtually has been a huge gain. And people thought at first there would be less participation, but there has been more, and I think that, on the county side, there does need to be more resources for people who don't have access to phones, computers, reliable internet. But that's very possible. I think that there can be kiosks. I think there can be access points like that. Another thing that has changed in district court practice and in superior court practice is the introduction of quads, right? So what we used to have was you showed up at 9 o'clock and you were in court all day until your case got heard, right? And everybody was told your case is at 9 o'clock. And it's really, really challenging for people to be able to give a whole day, right? And then not only that, when it comes to pandemic-related concerns, you can't have everybody showing up at 9 o'clock. You have a lot of exposure, right? So what's happened in Superior Court and District Court is dockets are being split up throughout the day, right? You have a 9 o'clock, you have an 11 o'clock, you have a 1 o'clock, you have a 3 o'clock, right? And having that breaking up of all of the different dockets allows there to be less people in court at the same time, but also increases reliability for the people who do have court. They know more likely when their case is going to be heard and when their case is going to be over, so that they can schedule around that and still, carry on with their lives.
Thank you. Cecilia?
Thank you. The increase in video court, there was a lot of people, their liberty was at stake and they were stuck in jail, not getting hearings in state or federal court. Same thing with not just emergency protective orders, but just in general, all civil matters. Definitely an increase in video conferencing. I agree with Ms. Mobley that for the individuals who don't have internet access or high-speed internet, some kiosk where they can actually meet with their attorneys or meet with the clients and then meet with the judges as well during a pandemic where people still remain safe. The pandemic surprised everyone. No one really knew what they were doing. I think everybody did the best they could, but we've learned from it. So I would also encourage more for attorneys, like continuing legal education classes on how to address another pandemic and how to still practice law and make sure the needs of all the clients, all the litigants are met, even when the courthouse is actually physically closed. Thank you.
Okay, Keith?
WebEx and video hearings have really helped a lot. The electronic filing is looking at in the future. I love the idea that Ms. Mobley presented about the kiosk. We really need to take advantage of our community partners and partner with our community partners about making these resources available to the public. There are so many individuals who indicated that don't have access to reliable internet, and based upon my connection, maybe mine isn't as connected as it needs to be, but we need to have that availability for so they can have access. The WebEx hearings have made hearings a lot more available to a lot of working people that don't have transportation or that have really strict work hours. They can actually on a video hearing and handle the matter instantly. So we do have opportunity to advance those solutions.
Okay, and Shantay?
Excuse me. So I echo everything that was stated about being more internet savvy, having WebEx hearings, but also having electronic filing. That, as an attorney, that would be so helpful if we had electronic filing. And I know that for certain clients that I have, if they could access their file at the courthouse electronically, that would be beneficial. But if there was ever another pandemic, increasing access, but also increasing education and making sure that they are aware that the courthouse is still open and what is operating in the courthouse. I know for me, I had a lot of clients that didn't know, oh, the pandemic came and everything shut down. I don't have to exchange my children. No, yes, you do. And so we need to inform them and educate them on what you still have to do, what rules and what laws you still have to follow, what orders you still have to follow, but what is actually going on at the courthouse. And we need to make sure that we educate our community better moving forward.
Thank you. Chris?
I'm going to apologize. I'm going to nerd out a little bit right now. I worked in the magistrate's office during the pandemic, and we did never close. I've also served on many committees with the district court that have tackled this issue, both from involuntary commitment and domestic violence. And I'm on the e-courts committee, where we are rolling out electronic filing as part of the statewide computer expansion by the end of this year, both in criminal process and just general filing that'll be accessible like it is in federal court. The expanse of WebEx has been great. I mean, we're on it right now. And there's talk now to further expand that, now that's been codified into statute, that we can do remote hearings across the board. There's going to be an expansion of the ability of law enforcement to first use WebEx and then expanding that out to the public and outlying areas in Mecklenburg County. There's an appetite for this now. We've been able to use that with involuntary commitments. We've been able to use and leverage faxing finally with law enforcement, so they don't have to drive from Huntersville to the courthouse to Huntersville to the hospital to get somebody the help they need. And I was instrumental in writing and implementing that. I love technology. I love being on the cutting edge of getting people more access to the things they need, not putting obstructions in their way. But we still need to have a way for people that don't have that access to get into court. So there always will be in-person hearings. One of the things we didn't expect was that people would miss court and get arrested for it when we were trying to expand things like giving text message alerts, because not everybody can get that. One of the things the School of Government, which is a wonderful thing, is working on right now, and I look forward to, is having clinics and amnesty days for people that have missed court because of that, so they don't get arrested and they can have their court date rescheduled. They're piloting that around the state, and I want to see it brought here to Mecklenburg County, especially in district criminal court, which is something I hope to be intimately familiar with in the future. These are technological things that can leverage how the court helps the people, and I want to be involved in that more than I am now, but I am really invested right now, and I know I've gone over time, and I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Evidently not. I didn't hear Nathalie jump in. Okay, I have one last question. And I know that we have lots of questions in the chat, but it is 9:25, and each person will answer the question, so it does take time. So I'm going to ask this question. I've had several questions about systemic racism and bias in the courtroom, in the court, in the district court. So the question is, are there any elements of district court that you feel are systemically biased? If so, what are they and how should they be adjusted? All judicial candidates typically say they will be impartial and fair to Black, but the data, particularly for Brown and Black communities, don't always support the promises. So I hope you got that, and we're going to start with Cecilia.
Thank you, and I appreciate that the person who wrote that said this commitment to impartiality, because I think all judges say I have a commitment to impartiality, and I think the majority of judges mean well by that. But I also think that everyone, including myself, we all have to understand that we have implicit biases, that there is covert racism, and that's just basically being born and raised in this country where it's embedded, and it's been embedded in the system for long before all of us were born. So how I approach it is I approach it as an unlearning what I learned in the past and trying to consciously make myself aware also if I am putting my point of view first, put my personal point of view aside, and unlearn the past. It's just hard to do because every day we're still seeing commercials, TV, advertisements that are geared toward psychology in our brain. But if individuals make a conscious effort to at least try, again, I don't think anybody's trying to be biased, but I think it's embedded in everyone. More training.
Okay. Keith?
Thank you for the question. I think you have to have familiarity with the people you're dealing with, whether they be members of the community, African American community, other communities, minority communities. So you have to know who they are. And I agree with that there are a lot of biases we walk into rooms with, but we not walk into those rooms judges who are supposed to be doing it on facts. The reason I keep harping up on the need to meet people where they are is you're looking at an individual that acts grew up in a room and you're in child support court and you're looking to place them in custody for a period of time because they can't pay child support. Are you truly meeting them where they are? So we need to move away from that's to meet people where they are and remove our biases.
Okay, Keith, we can, we get every other word that you say. Okay, we're getting every other word. Work on that internet connection.
Yeah,
okay,
that's I said. I need that kiosk. So thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, Shantay.
Yes. So number one, implicit bias exists. We first need to admit that it does exist. We need to have a conversation about it. Those are the tough conversations that we fail to have, and we have to address it. That is also why it's very important to have a diverse criminal justice system, a diverse bench, because our community that comes before us are diverse. And that's diversity is not just race, diverse in age, diverse in backgrounds and upbringings, because when you can have that diversity, you're bringing different perspectives and different understandings to the bench. Also, knowing that Race Matters for Juvenile Justice is an awesome program where you're collaborating with the community, helping them with those who may have been mistreated. We're trying to lower that chances of them being mistreated in court or disproportionately decided against. But also bias also occurs in family court, because oftentimes I've seen where I've represented the father and sometimes people think that the mother is the better parent or vice versa. So it happens in every level of the courthouse. It has to be addressed. And I address it by, again, submerging myself in different tables, different atmospheres, getting to hear the voices of the people. I grew up in a place where I had no choice but to make sure I mingle and listen to every person.
Okay, thank you. And Belal?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely. Systemic racism, bias, they stubbornly persist in our court system and create disparate outcomes. The facts show it in people who are willing to address it, are willing to understand it and combat it. For me, the experiences that I've had that help play in the most really come from the clients that I've represented. And like you've heard, I mean, it's not just in criminal court. I've represented clients in family court that have dealt with bias. Child support, unfortunately, suffers from it a lot as well. Juvenile court to an extent, but juvenile court is intentionally slowed down for that better care per case. And that's an approach that we need to expand to all the other courtrooms because it works well when it does work in juvenile justice. And it is something that can help, right? Seeing faces, not cases, right? And that's, I'm mimicking one of my favorite district court judges, Judge Ricky McCoy Mitchell, when I say that. Those are not my words, but she has always been an inspiration, and I've learned a lot from appearing in front of her. But making public service your livelihood, making public interest law your livelihood, means you're doing 60, 70 hours a week of learning your clients' experiences and learning their issues, getting to know their families. Thanks.
Okay, and let's see who I did not get. Samantha.
Thank you for the question. I agree with many of my colleagues that the first thing is admitting that biases do exist. As a magistrate, I have been, I swore an oath and have served you and honored that oath for the last 8 years and each time that I've been sworn in. One thing that's in all of our hands that we could do, if we see that there is a case that is maybe triggering a certain negative feeling or making us feel a certain way against the defendant or the litigant, is recuse ourselves. We need people who are willing to admit that and recuse themselves from a case. And that can help with bias. And that's something that we are allowed to do in those instances. So that's one thing within our power that I am committed to. If there is something that I don't feel that I could be fair on, maybe because this happened to me before or someone that I love and so on. So being willing to do that is key. And looking at every case individually, even if a lot of the people who are coming in look the same, they're not the same. Looking at that person, who they are now, what they're doing now, considering also their history, is very important to just look at every individual case as the individual case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. And we do want to thank all of you for being here today. Oh, Chris, did you have your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. Can I answer that question?
Oh, I didn't call on you.
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay. Absolutely. Racial imbalances and unfair decisions plague our court system. We all have implicit bias and we have to recognize that. We have to set it aside. I'm happy to say that I go through training as often as possible to set my own aside, including the Race Matters for Juvenile Justice and the new onboarding for magistrates and district court judges, hours of training, recognizing your own biases and being able to recuse yourself when needed or set aside your own biases when you put on that robe, because that's part of the oath. But the training and being in court and being impartial and being up on that bench in that chair is not everything you have to do. You have to be able to see the person in front of you as a human being, especially when they don't look like you. And the expectations they have are because they don't look like you. Because someone who looks like me has built a system even when they're trying not to, that punishes them more than they should. And I see that as a magistrate. I see disparate criminal histories in front of me, and the only explanation is race. And to be able to understand how to deflect that, how to move that person instead of a long criminal history to the same opportunities they have that someone else may have in district court for deferred prosecution or for diversion is one of the reasons I'm running for district court judge. And to have that humanity, to see that shared humanity requires work outside of the courtroom. And it requires uncomfortable conversations with people that have experienced things that I've never gone through, and recognizing we have to change our systems and address those policies head on with the way we're changing our bail policy and our trainings. And so we have to work on that from the inside and the outside to make sure people can trust when they come to the courtroom. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I do want to thank all of you for being here today.